Welcome back to my channel, everyone. Sri Tips here. Today what we're going to do is a quick gold refining. That's 14K. We got 24.7 grams. Now we're going to add some 10K stuff. And that is 71.6 grams. Looks like I'm going to need 76 grams of sterling silver to quart this gold. I'm going to pull it back just a little bit, taking the tangs off of one of the forks here, and we're going to use 72 grams to quart this gold. The reason? Some of these bigger pieces in here are 9-karat gold. Our estimated yield for the 14K is going to be 14.4 grams of pure gold. Estimated yield for the 10K was 29.8, but I reduced it by 3 grams to account for the amount of 9-karat gold that I have in this batch of scrap. So the total yield that I'm expecting is 41.2 grams of pure gold. I'm going to add some distilled water to our quarted gold. Set it up on the heat. This is another batch that I started yesterday, and this is the 4th nitric acid boil in here. So we're just going to pour this off now into our new batch that we just started today, and use any residual nitric from this jar to dissolve out the silver and base metals in this jar. Now what we'll do is add some distilled water to this, and then I'm gonna put some more nitric acid in here and do a 5th nitric acid boil on this gold. Put it back up on the heat. Now we're going to pour off this nitric acid boil into our silver jar. This is full of sterling silver in here. And what will happen is any excess nitric in this solution that I'm pouring off will get consumed by those pieces of sterling silver in there. The solution will contain a whole bunch of silver. Alright, this 5th nitric boil back here. We'll pour this off now. It's still going to have some hot active nitric in it. So we'll add it to this beaker over here and continue parting the silver and base metals out of this imported gold with the excess nitric that's in this solution that I just poured off. Let's pour this in here. And now I'm going to add a little water to this. I'll set this back up on the heat and give that a quick boil on low heat. I'm getting ready to pour off this nitric boil back here. But first, what we're going to do is make some room in one of my silver jars. I've got a funnel set up here, and I'm filtering the solution. This is going to be loaded with silver nitrate. Now I've got some room in my silver jar. What we'll do is pour this nitric boil off into the silver jar. This is fairly dramatic because it'll have a little bit more nitric in it, and we should see a lot of fume production here as we pour off the hot acid. Now what I'll do is add some more water, put it back up on the heat, pouring in some nitric acid to continue to get all the silver and base metals removed out of this imported gold. I'm going to rinse the filter out real good here. I'll save those solids that are in that filter, put it in my paper storage. It will contain some precious metals, and we'll want to save that filter so that we can recover those precious metals. Here I'm using a bucket to cement the silver out of our silver solutions. And so what I'm going to do, this has already been reacted. There's a piece of copper in here, and some cement silver. This big bucket down below is my waste container for my silver refining stuff. It's got pieces of copper in there. Any residual silver that's in this bucket that I'm pouring off will cement out on those pieces of copper in there, and I can recover this later. Yeah, here's our bucket with a piece of copper and some cement silver. I'm adding some rinse water to this bucket to dilute it. This is distilled water that was used to rinse some pure silver crystal. Here I'm going to add a little bit more distilled water to make sure we dilute the silver nitrate solution down. Now we're going to take the solution that we just filtered. It's going to be free of any excess nitric acid because we've already reacted this with some sterling silver. So all we'll have in here is silver nitrate and copper nitrate. I'm going to pour this right on into this bucket, and we're going to cement the silver out of this solution onto the piece of copper that's in there. Once this reaction is complete, all the silver cemented out onto the copper, I'll have a bucket full of cement silver, and the solution will be copper nitrate. Here's the same thing in this beaker. This is what it'll look like. Then I'll get it out of there, separate the blue liquid from the gray cement silver. We put it in a dish, and I'll dry it out like this here. And then we'll put this in a crucible in my big furnace and melt it up into some granules like this. And then we'll run these through the electrolytic silver cell to make high purity 3/9 fine pure silver crystal. Not sure what nitric boil this is. It really doesn't matter. We just keep doing nitric boils until the solution remains colorless. I'm going to pour this one off now into our silver jar. And we're going to rinse this out with a little bit of distilled water. I'm going to add a little bit of distilled water to the jar. I'm going to set it back up on the heat. And now we're going to add a little bit more nitric acid so that we can continue removing the silver and base metals from this quartered gold. I think we're there. We're done with the nitric boils. You can see the solution here is colorless, and so that tells me that we've removed all the silver and the base metals. Now what we'll do is give this a rinse. And then we're going to add a little bit of water to this. Set it back up on the heat. Just let it heat up in some water a little bit. This has been boiling now for about a few minutes. What we're going to do is I'm going to pour off the boiling water out of here now into our silver jar. We've got our quartered gold in this beaker. Back here, I've been boiling this in water now for over an hour and a half probably. I'm going to get rid of all the water off of this now into our silver jar. And next what we'll do is I'm going to transfer all the gold into one beaker. Now we've got all the gold into one beaker. I'm going to pour off this water. And now what we'll do is I've got some hydrochloric acid, and I'm going to add some hydrochloric acid to the beaker with the gold in it now. About 400 milliliters of hydrochloric acid. I'm going to cover this up, and we're going to take this up now, set it up here on the heat. We're going to start this off by adding some sulfuric acid to the reaction, and this will precipitate out any lead that may be present. I'm adding some nitric acid here to a beaker. Let's go with about 35 milliliters. And we're going to pour this right on into our beaker to form aqua regia. Here we go. I'm going to try adding a few crystals of sulfamic acid while the solution's hot, and may have put just a touch too many, just a touch too much nitric in here. Just a few crystals here. Here it goes. Let's see what happens. I'm going to add another little scoop of sulfamic acid crystals. If I don't get a reaction here, we're going to consider this complete. I did not see a whole lot of reaction from the sulfamic acid. The solution looks really good, nice and clear. I'm going to take this down now off of the heat and let it cool off. I've allowed the solution to cool a little bit. We're going to add some ice now. Cool it down and dilute the solution. This is the junk we filtered out of the solution. Now what we're going to do is pour our solution into a clean beaker that's full of ice to keep this cool while we precipitate out the pure gold. Here we go with the first precipitation. We're using some Stump Out by Bonide. We're just going to start adding it right on in. Here we go. I'm going to pour off the waste into a waste container here. Get our gold out of here. Going to rinse with a little water. Rinse with a little hydrochloric acid. A little more water. Now we're going to cover the gold with some hydrochloric acid. Put it up on the heat here. And we're going to let it boil for a few minutes. That only took about 6 or 8 minutes. Now we're going to take this hydrochloric acid boil, and we're going to pour this off now into our waste container carefully. Going to rinse with a little hydrochloric acid. Now we'll rinse with a little water. Here's a look at the gold. It looks fantastic, just like it is. But what we're going to do now, I'm going to add some hydrochloric acid to this. About 400 milliliters, up to the 400 milliliter level. Put it up on the heat and refine it a second time. I'm going to add a few drops of sulfuric acid again, just in case any lead made it this far. Now we're going to go with about 35 milliliters again. I'll make it 40. We're going to pour this right on in and dissolve the gold a second time. Here we go. I was trying to speed things up by adding a little bit of extra nitric, and I think I've got some excess nitric in here again. So we're going to try another little experiment with some sulfamic acid. See what this does. Here we go. Oh! Oh yeah! Oh yeah! That's what sulfamic acid does to rid the solution of excess nitric. I'm going to put a little bit more in now. I got it real hot in there, so that's why it flared up like that, I think. I think we may have reacted all of the excess nitric out of there now. Put one more little spoon in. And I don't see a whole lot of reaction. Alright, this solution looks fantastic. Nice and clear. I think we've got all the excess nitric out of there now. I'm going to bring it down and we're going to set it down here and let it cool off. Alright, the filter's complete. Filter's nice and clean in there. So what we'll do now is get set up to precipitate out the pure gold. Notice the solution is nice and clear. I'm going to pour it into this clean beaker now. It's got some ice. Alright, here we go. This will be our second precipitation using stump out. I'm just going to go ahead and start putting some spoons of it right on in. Here goes the first spoon. Right now, it's a big one. Alright, here goes the second spoon. And number 3. And I think one more should do it. That took about 4 heaping teaspoons of stump out, and I think we've got everything precipitated out now. I've rinsed all the chemicals off several times with some water and some hydrochloric acid. And now what we're going to do is we're going to set it up on the heat and give it a hydrochloric acid boil. This always seems to help the purity of the gold. That just took a few minutes. Now what we'll do is we're going to pour off the hydrochloric acid boil. Alright, here's a look at the gold. Down in the bottom of that beaker, it looks absolutely gorgeous. Just beautiful. Alright, let's get our gold down into this melt dish now. Alrighty, here we go. We're going to melt this up. A nice bar of pure gold. Here we go. Here's a look at the numbers. I was expecting 41.2, and the first batch that I did was 51.9, and so that's going to be 93.1. Here's our gold bar that we just finished. Looks superior. I'm always in awe of how this gold looks when you get done refining it. It's just beautiful. We've got a total of 91.4. We were expecting, what I say, 92.1, 93.1. So we're off by a couple grams, which is normal. That's how it goes. Carat scrap is very rarely ever plum. All right, this will conclude the video. Thank you for watching.